We're live, Beck.
Excellent.
Hello. So this is the first member interview for Million Tree Pledge. I'm really excited to have our co-founder, Bek Kimber from Create.net with me today. So Beck, just start off by telling us a little bit about you, and then more importantly, why you decided to take the Million Tree Pledge.
Thanks, Marcus. Thanks for inviting me to come along. I'm really excited to start talking more about the pledge and what it means. I'm Beck. I run a company called Create with my husband, Simon Kimber, and it's a platform to build your own website and e-commerce store. It's about coming up for 20 years old now this year. And it's basically a way for small businesses, independent people, professionals to build their own site themselves and control it, and use tools that they don't need to have any code for. So it's about making the internet accessible, basically. We last year, about 7 months ago now, we started on the journey to being more sustainable as a business. We're already doing lots of sustainable stuff, like being in an office with a wind turbine in Brighton, which was really cool, and doing recycling in our office space, and just thinking a lot about those kinds of things. But we weren't really thinking necessarily about our impact on the environment out on the internet, and we were kind of relying on our partners to do that for us. So we started thinking about what the actual impact of our infrastructure was and how we could make it greener, thinking about what partners we were using and thinking about what we needed to move and change so that we could start to provide our customers with carbon neutral website hosting, which is what we've been doing.
Yeah, were you always concerned about climate change? Like, when was the moment where you thought, actually, this is a serious crisis that I need to take bold action on?
Yes, I was personally, but it always felt like we couldn't kind of come across that much into the business. Like we were making decisions, the right decisions, but actually wanting to lead the business in a sustainable way, in a way that it was actually more about people and the planet and the business, rather than business first and then people and the planet come after, because you've got a business, and really kind of like bringing all those things together a little while ago. We tried kind of before and talked about it before, and some things sort of stick, like doing a bit more recycling and stuff, but actually being a business which is a business that's pro trying to fix the climate crisis. Really, every business needs to be doing that. And
I think now, like, obviously that's a lot more prevalent, obviously nowhere near enough, but I guess you guys are 20 years old, so in like 2001, right? I mean, few people were talking about setting up a business that doesn't just prioritize profit but also prioritizes the planet and people. That's actually quite a rare sort of approach and philosophy in business.
Yeah, I think it was. I mean, everybody's talking about it's that thing about where people talk about 3% GDP growth every year, and you think, well, how are you going to achieve 3% growth year on year when there's not 3% extra planet year on year to take it from? It doesn't make sense. And so we all need to start thinking about how we do business differently, because we can't keep swapping money for resources.
And have you noticed that more people are, because I love that quote you just said then, I think I want to steal it for a soundbite, but have you noticed that more businesses are getting on board with that? Because I imagine 20 years ago, I know that personally when I was involved in environmental stuff, it just sounded like, tree hugging extremes, sort of like a bit, what do you mean you can't have endless growth, economic growth on a finite planet? What are you talking about? I mean, have you seen a lot of attitudes change, and does that give you hope?
Yeah, I think it does, and we've had one of those conversations recently, actually, between in the company. But I'm very cautious about that, because I feel like I'm in a bit of a bubble, where you can end up sort of surrounding yourself with a group of people on social media, and you don't necessarily have a balanced viewpoint because everybody's talking the same thing. There's definitely more noise about it and more people talking about it, but it's hard to say that it's really getting through. But I think that the government initiatives that they've got, where they're talking a lot about race to zero and things like that are happening at the moment are really helping. Small Business Britain just got on board with a sustainability guides and support that they're doing, really to push for that with small businesses, because everybody can make a difference with the things that they're choosing to do, what they buy, and you know, the actions they take.
Yeah, and obviously you guys at Creator are such influencers, because I think out of the Million Tree Pledge founding members, you've already done over 250,000 trees, right? So and all of your customers are on sort of zero carbon hosting and so on. Is that kind of like that's almost like synonymous and tied in with almost like your positioning as a business, right? It is also about will help you become greener, and we'll also want to influence our clients to become more green. Do you think that helps, that you're attracting people who are switched on to this a bit more?
Yeah, I think so. And it's an easy win. Most of the changes people need to come from organisations that make it easy for them to do it. We've seen it in the energy sector, where energy now coming from renewable sources is really accessible. It's pretty much the same prices as buying non-renewable. And so it's making it an easy option for people. And it's we've done for websites, making it so there is a green option, a really clear green option.
I mean, do you think we're doing enough though? I mean, it feels from my perspective, it feels very 11th hour. I think it sounds nice, it's a nice conversation, but I think we can both be frank that we feel like we're, I mean,
no.
Yeah, I think that.
I said to one of the guys at work the other day, I was like, right, we need to get the Million Tree Pledge out of the way. That's why I've got like 250,000 trees, because I was like, because we need to get seaweed and we need to get on with this other stuff. And after I watched Seaspiracy, and I know it's like a bit contentious about what they were showing, but like the amount of destruction going on the seabed of forest and CO2 that's being emitted through fishing, it was just like, well, I just planted 100,000 trees that week, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. I've just done nothing, so we've just got to get more people on the Million Tree Pledge and doing more, and just thinking about every little thing that you can do to make the environment a better place. I read a stat in a book that's called How to Save the World for Free, and she's the lady that's written it has written a quote about toilet paper, and she says, in the US, if every household in the US changed to one toilet paper made of recycled trees instead of virgin pulp, there would be 432,000 less trees cut down that year.
Wow.
One toilet roll each.
Jeez. Just one, right? I mean, you think how many toilet rolls a family gets through. The numbers are mind-boggling. I think one of the things when, with thinking about sort of setting up the Million Tree Pledge, because I sort of took it personally and thought, right, I'm going to try and plant 1 million trees. And I watched David Attenborough's documentary where he mentioned that humanity's cut down 3 trillion trees, which is funny. I gave a presentation to my team and I tried to explain the difference between 1 million, 1 billion and 1 trillion without just going, it's this number of extra zeros. So the way I did it is quite a nice thought experiment. So I said, look, so imagine you and I, Bek, are going to count to 1 million, and every extra number is going to be 1 second. So it's going to be 1, 2. How long do you think it would take for us to count to 1 million? I'll put you on the spot too quickly. It's 11 days, right? So it's 11 days, fine. But actually to count to 1 billion will take 33 years. So that's the difference between 1 million and 1 billion. It's 11 days versus 33 years. And then, of course, to count to 1 trillion will be 33,000 years. Wow. So that's the exponential difference between, people throw around million, billion, and trillion as if like they're interchangeable, because I think our minds think linearly, even though the world's full of exponentials. But I think the fact that humanity's cut down 3 trillion trees, which is just under half the amount of total trees, it just makes our, I think the Million Tree Pledge is brilliant, but we need now millions of people to take that pledge to get the trillions of trees. And I think that's where it becomes exciting. I guess it's the normalization of, what you guys are doing at Create.net, we're doing a founding partnership with small businesses, but coming together to make a big difference. But it's making it the normal thing. I don't know if this is this. I've seen examples of this recently. I don't think this winds you up as much as me, but there are people, businesses who are planting trees. Like there's one business that have 400 employees I saw recently, and they planted 400 trees, one for each employee, and they've kind of had this big PR piece about it and a landing page. And that is great. 400 trees is better than nothing, but at the same time, we also know for ecology, it's £40 or just over 40 quid to plant 40 trees. So the cost with the landing page, the video, the press release, was exponentially more. And I think
UK trees are slightly more. If they planted them in UK woodland, maybe they cost a £5 each, 10 each.
I read the landing page, and it was they're Eden reforestation, which are about between 8 and 12 pence, depending on who you use. But I think there's it's a tricky one. So I don't want to troll. I never want to be an internet troll and just sort of well, that's why I'm not naming them. But but you kind of think actually there needs to be a conversation where not just in educating people on the difference between million, billion, and trillion, but also just because 400 trees sounds like a lot, right? Like if I have 400 trees in my garden, I must have a massive garden. Like it sounds like a lot, but in context of what's disappearing, I think the other stat that David Attenborough gives is it's 15 billion trees are being lost a year. So, every year, which is just, again, it's just obscene. So I think it's why this movement is exciting, but also feels like a drop in the ocean at the same time. I just want to pick you up on something you said that I thought was really interesting, which you mentioned seaweed. To talk more to that, because I know this is the Million Tree Pledge, but it's all about solving the climate crisis. And I hear so much good stuff about seaweed, about its absorption of carbon and the fact it can't catch on fire, which is useful.
Well, that's good, yeah. I had a conversation with a guy the other day, and he was like, you're planting trees in a place that's probably you're just creating a fire hazard for the future. Like, brilliant.
Yeah.
There's so much of that, though, isn't there, where you're trying to do something that's good, and it's hard to always know that you're doing the right things. And I think that's one of the really important things about when we did our research and we started off with ecology, was picking out those gold standard schemes where we know ecology are doing that, and making sure that we're not planting some monoculture forest that isn't beneficial and isn't in the right place, because that's one of the things that I think that I have been questioned about, actually, where some of our customers have come on and they said, if I want to do these kinds of things, what should I be doing as well? And it's like, well, make sure you look for these gold standard schemes, because they're the ones that are already doing a lot more research and making sure they're putting the trees in the right places, and obviously they're also employing people as well in those areas to produce the means.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, go on.
No, it's all right. Finished. Go on.
No, sorry, I mistimed that. But the thing about trees in the wrong place is interesting, because I don't know if you've read Bill Gates's book on solving the climate crisis. It is really good. It's very practical. It's like, look, we're dumping 51 billion tons of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, and here's how we get it to zero in the right amount of time. And drawing down carbon dioxide and greenhouse gases is a big part of that. But he's a bit lukewarm to trees. Like, he says, yes, they're good, but he makes that point of in the wrong place, it's a wash, right? So he uses the example, if we planted a ton of trees in Siberia, actually that would mean there's less snow cover, which means there's less reflection of heat. So that doesn't really work. And the point you make about the monoculture is just as unnatural as well. And the other point about, a friend of mine, she's done conservation work in Madagascar, and she's the trouble with the mangroves, even though they're brilliant for sequester of carbon, they're great for marine life, is that they create brilliant charcoal. So for local people, by setting them all on fire, they can then sell the charcoal. So there's that sort of thing. The trees need to be guarded, and there is all these sort of challenges with it. But I think the trouble is, if we just spend our time debating every day about what the right thing is, unless you don't start pulling the trigger and taking action. Like the planet doesn't care, about which COP conference and whether Paris is being kept to, and whether we're debating whether mangroves or whatever. Every day, parts per million of CO2 are just going up, and continuing to go up. And it doesn't really, it's indifferent to our opinions and our Twitter debates and all the rest of it. And I think it's something that one of the other co-founders, Dennis, said is, look, let's just start planting trees now. It'll buy us a little bit more time, and then we can figure out the perfect strategy, in time. Because we've at the minute, there's a big sense, from my perspective, of analysis paralysis. And they said it actually with Earth Day recently, that delay is the new denial. And I think a lot of people are delaying, going, oh, well, it's complicated. Do I plant trees? Do I not? And then they just keep pumping.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the case. And with small businesses in particular, where you maybe don't have the funds to do any kind of measurement as to your carbon footprint, you can get caught up trying to work out what it actually is, when you should just start with the simple stuff. Am I on renewable energy? Can I change my suppliers to people who are carbon neutral or working in that direction? And all those things help your footprint without you having to take the steps at the start to work out what your footprint actually is. Cut as much as you can off, and then measure the last hard part, which is the bit that you offset. But Bill probably talks about trees, because trees aren't an immediate hit to the carbon setting. So they're not immediately taking the carbon out. They take over their lifetime. Mangrove trees 5 times better than most of our trees in this country at removing the CO2. And I think they take about 33 tons of CO2 out in their lifetime over 25 years, 30 years, something like that.
Something like that,
but Bill's probably keen on, we need to take CO2 out now. And that's why we've been doing carbon offsetting as well, where we're investing in carbon programs that actually are reducing CO2 right now. But we need to do both, because we need to make sure that the planet and the ecosystem and, all of our species have somewhere to live that's suitable to live in, and we have somewhere to live that's suitable to live in as well, because it's going to be a really angry world and a hostile world if we don't make those changes. So we need to do all those things.
Yeah, it's interesting you said about the measurement piece, because I think that's where people I've met have got stuck, because they've gone, oh, it's complicated to measure our emissions, so I'm just going to do nothing. But I think what you're saying is actually you go for the quick wins first. And I mean, it's probably worth mentioning the tool you released for Earth Day. If you want to just mention that quickly, because that's really cool.
Yeah, that's at www.create.net/eco-checker. And basically, it just tell you really quickly whether or not your website's on renewable energy, green energy. And it's not necessarily 100% renewable energy, because it's using the Green Web Foundation to look it up, but it's their diagnosis of whether or not you're offsetting or green or renewable, better than not. And it just gives you a few little tips about different things to do. It's just to start a conversation, get people thinking about it, because it's quite amazing actually, because when people put the web address in, it does log the web address, but no other sort of information that you give it. The number of websites that are actually kind of like eco-friendly websites or business for good kind of things that aren't on green energy, it's quite surprising. And I know that them just doing that thing is going to get them to go away and think about it, because and to think about making a change, because they're that kind of business. So even if it's them on that journey, and we move a few people to think more about renewable energy for everything that we do,
I think it's a brilliant tool, because I think a lot of people just assume that the internet's fine, right? But I read a stat that it's about 7% of global emissions now is digital. Which is more than the air industry. It's pretty. And I think Tom from Wholegrain mentions a book about a horrendous stat that because Cristiano Ronaldo has like 200 million Instagram followers, every time he posts, it uses the same amount of electricity as 10 houses from Portugal for a year.
Wow.
Every post. Because you think about it, there's 200 million feeds that need updating when people check.
Yeah.
And you just, gosh, we're really, and with that is something we use just so liberally, the internet and tech. So it's just starting to think about actually, the fundamentals that you're pointing out, which is just the hosting, but then from everything else.
It's the consumption at the other end. So if you've got a really busy website, then everybody that's looking up your website, they're not on renewable energy too. If it's really heavy or it's full of scripts or it's really slow to load, that's going to use a lot more energy at the customer's end. And if you've got thousands of people on it, we've got a tip on the website, which is just, do you need that one, can you take one image off? Because if everybody took one image off of a really busy website, then you've instantly cut energy consumption of all of your visitors. It's just thinking a little bit more like that, a little bit simpler about, do we need those things? Because until everybody's on renewable energy, there's consumption going on, even if all of us as providers can make the move. And there's no reason why we can't. The internet should be a win, a place where we can win at this.
Absolutely. I mean, is there something you guys have, I imagine you advise your clients about that, of like, do you really want all these extra images and bells and whistles and all this sort of dense stuff that will slow the site down, which isn't great for conversion or SEO, but two, it's very carbon intensive.
Yeah, exactly. That's basically what the tool's doing, and we're doing a lot at our end to try to do more caching. We're releasing some more caching things tomorrow, which mean that it doesn't need to go to so many stops, and just lots and lots of different things where we're optimizing all the images. If you load up, for those technical among us, you load up Google PageSpeed and it starts talking about paintfuls and optimizing your pictures and what you should do. Most people don't know what any of that stuff is or how to action it. So we're trying to do as much as possible behind the scenes to mean that you don't need to optimize your images, because we're already doing it, and then we said the one that fits the screen. And that's where everybody who's doing the sorts of things that we're doing needs to be going to vision.
I guess it's still quite, because you guys are quite rare. I know a few sort of web design agencies, and talking like this just isn't. I think it's quite common just to say, "Hey, client, here's some really cool designs. What do you think?" And it's almost like the designers will just put in what they want.
Yeah.
I am starting to see there's more minimalist sort of design starting to creep in, but it's probably because I'm looking for it. It's certainly not the norm. But I guess it's something that I guess we need to influence, because you and I obviously both work in the agency world. I mean, we're obviously a performance agency, but there's an argument also from SEO and conversion perspective that having news sites are the worst. Not that I ever really read the Mail online, but if you ever click on an article from it and it's just like a Christmas tree of lights and banner ads and all sorts of rubbish.
Awful. It's just awful. And then there's a video playing in the corner, or a video over here, and then it's over here, and you're like, I need to turn it off. I don't want it to play. But it's the same as this kind of fashion for auto playing background video.
Yeah.
And ways that we will get to it where we're optimizing it. But if every single time someone lands on your website, they're going to automatically load in a huge video and then play it in the background just because it looks nice, in essence, it's a huge load. It's a really big load that actually is unnecessary.
Yeah. I just thought that I'm probably going to plant 3 or 4 trees and buy a couple of credits for this little call we're having now, because I can see a cynic going, well, you two are taking up sort of bandwidth and energy. And even though this is going on, I mean, like YouTube is run on renewable, but still people's devices won't be, like we were just saying.
Yeah.
And LinkedIn as well. I've got, Microsoft have got as, renewable pledge, but again, it's that. So I think I'll plant a few personal trees for every Million Tree Pledge interview I do. Just it's the best I can do right now.
It
is difficult.
It's very difficult. It's a bit like measuring. We've been trying to use Google Meet a bit more than Zoom for work stuff, because we know that the Google Meet is much better for the environment than Zoom. But if if members of our team are at home, they're in rented accommodation, they don't have any access to changing their energy supplier, then potentially they're burning fossil fuels to have that meeting. And it's all a challenge. We just all need to get on it, and we need to start shifting much faster than we are.
Yeah, is there anything you guys are doing as a company? Because I know that I know there are companies that do quite interesting things. Like, we're talking about doing this, and it's raising a few eyebrows. But there's an idea of, if you don't fly to go on holiday, if you say get the train across Europe, you can have those extra holiday days off for free, right? There's stuff like that. And there's, is it Octopus? There's a company that works with the really low benefit in kind. so that employees can lease electric vehicles. So just stuff like that. That's, I think, because it's, as employers, we do have a slightly larger influence than just our own households. We have maybe 20, 50. How many guys are you at Create at the minute?
10.
Yeah. Well, it's still 10 people though, and that's massive. That's times 10 in your household, right? But it's amazing actually. A team of 10 that are planting 250,000 trees. It's a really good, well on their way to doing 1 million.
Yeah.
It's a good case study because there are large corporates that have pledged 1 million, but they may have 55,000 employees. One in mind as well, I'm thinking of in particular. And I just think actually, it's like, look, if we start telling stories of teams of 10, 20, 30, 40, all planting 1 million trees within a few years, it just changes the narrative of what's possible and also what should be done.
Yeah, it's 100,000 trees each, basically, as a team. So, yeah, I think everybody at work would be, the office would be pretty cool about that.
That's a pretty amazing recruitment tool to say, oh, by the way, we're planting 100,000 trees. Like, that's a legacy, like that's,
yeah.
It's a funny thing. Like, obviously different people are motivated by different things, but I'd feel like I'd want to do exceptionally well for my company if I knew that, one, I cared about this, and two, I knew they were going to plant 100,000 trees in my, for me. So it's kind of like, just keep working hard and ensuring the clients are happy, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. And they are happy about it, but they're also a little bit cynical about things sometimes. So they keep me on track with things like, are they planting shrubs as well? Or where are we going to do these things? Or what are we going to talk about? And, we were having a conversation about video again the other day. And one of the guys was like, well, hang on a minute, does this fit? Because are we going to do this? And choosing partners. So we recently launched the Klarna payment gateway for stores.
Nice.
And we looked at alternative, the buy now, pay later gateways, and we looked at different alternatives for that. And we were like, well, these people, Klarna have got the best sustainability information on their website, and it's not as transparent as I would have liked it to have been, but out of everybody they were pushing more for it. So it's trying to bring what we're doing into every decision that we're making, and not just doing it like we would have done.
That's really cool. It's inspiring. And I wonder if, cause we're about to go through B Corp and make a number of decisions similar to what you're doing. But the thing that sprung into mind is, we probably should let people like Klarna know that we've chosen you because of this. So it almost like we want to create that positive feedback loop, because I'm sure within Klarna there are cynical people saying, oh, this is just a fad being green, or is this actually really helping our marketing effort? And it's almost like, as the 1 Million Tree Pledge community grows, we can do stuff like that. A lot of us in digital can write en masse to groups like Klarna and say, actually, we recommend you to our clients for a number of reasons, but predominantly because you're taking this climate emergency seriously. And I think companies need that feedback, because then it just reinforces the goodwill and creates a virtuous cycle and just helps quiet the cynics.
It helps everybody else step up and take note though as well, because if there are particular reasons why companies get chosen over other companies, and we need everybody doing the same things, taking it as seriously and talking about it. It's trying to find an email provider like MailChimp. No one seems to have anything at all on their websites at the moment about email marketing and sustainability, and I know that it's probably a pretty difficult area to measure and talk about and think about how you're going to be really green, but no one's even talking about pushing it forwards. No one's even talking about what they're and there might be, so maybe when we post this out, someone might come back to me and say, actually there's these people here, apart from one company that was mentioned that's a kind of agency cross mix. There's no one that's doing email marketing where they're really pushing forwards with sustainability and green and those kinds of things, even with a pledge to be dirty. So there's a lot of opportunity for people to lead the way and pull industries with them, which I hope we'll start to see too.
I think that's one of the cool things about sort of this community that's, Million Tree Pledge, but then also, there's the ecology and other groups that we're part of. And I think if we pull together, we have quite a large collective buying power. Do you know what I mean? and we all need things like, you know, whether it's email providers, hosting providers, etc. Obviously, there's a very good one who's a founding member of ours, you know, Crystal, and they're very switched on. But I think we can actually start making noise, you know, that will actually push the bigger boys even further in that direction. But it requires us actually just to say, look, you know, there's a group of us, there's, you know, 1,000 businesses. Most of us need your service, and we're choosing between you and 3 other providers. Can you please explain, you know, what you're doing? Can you consider taking a pledge? Can you show us how you're getting to zero? Are you a B Corp? All these things. And hopefully it will just compound. And the first movers will be able to take more market share, and then the laggards will suffer, but quite rightfully. So it's
I mean, if we, you know, there's those back to those simple actions again. It's like if 1,000 people write to, you know, their email marketing provider and ask them what they're doing about green within a week, they're going to start thinking quite seriously about, you know, what are we doing about this? Because suddenly there's a lot of people talking about it and looking at alternatives, and you know, that's the way that people have power to take action.
That's super inspiring. And so I guess the final thing, because I realise we've hit 30 minutes now, which is great. It's flown by, which I guess I knew it would. Is, you know, scale of 1 to 10, how hopeful are you that we'll be able to halt and reverse the climate emergency?
Can I go somewhere in the middle at 5?
Yeah, no, I don't. But mine oscillates depending on the sunshine and whether I get some good green news or whatever. You know, so, yeah, you think it's about 50-50 at the minute, huh?
Yeah, it's going to be a challenge.
Yeah,
and things are going to be different. You know, when we do get to kind of like, there's no way it's going to stay the same, but hopefully we can at least limit the impacts it's having. No,
the fact you and I having this conversation today is, I mean, sadly, it's probably 10 years too late, but let's be optimistic. It could be worse. We could be doing it in 10 years in the future, and then it's certainly a lot later. So yeah, I think, look, we'll wrap up here. So thank you for your time and being the first Million Tree Pledge interviewer, but also co-founder as well and builder of the incredible website and all the wonderful things that you guys do. As someone who's used your CMS, and I've used lots of CMSs, I put yours up there as the most user-friendly. I've absolutely enjoyed it. You know, and I normally have WordPress as my favorite, but I prefer you guys. And the fact that you're green as well makes it even better. So anyone who hasn't checked out create.net, check it out. And thanks, Bek.
No worries. I enjoyed talking about it. I'm happy to chat about the environment anytime, what we can do.
Cool. Well, I guess people can go to the website and know to find you. This is going out on YouTube and LinkedIn, and there's some lovely little sound bites from it, so I'll be clipping those up later. But anyway, thanks for your time. I'll end the broadcast now, and you take care.